So here we are on the next episode of the Enneagram Movie, and Mario Sakura, along with me, is TJ Dahl. And TJ, we're going to be talking about two movies today. Tell us what movies we're going to talk about.
We're going to talk about American Fiction and Anora, which the reason we chose those is those are our respective favorite movies that we saw in the last year.
Yeah. And so I had not seen, let's see, I had not even heard of Anora before, because I've been kind of living under a rock these days. And I only recently saw American Fiction. And so I picked that one. You picked Anora. And next time we're going to talk about TV shows too, kind of what we watched and enjoyed on TV shows. But you picked Anora. Tell me why you picked that movie.
Yeah, I had heard of it because it won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, so it was getting a fair bit of buzz because of that. And it's the rare movie these days that's not based on a franchise. It's simply a character drama. There was one actor in it that I recognized, who's Mikey Madison, who's not even that well known. You know, I know her from the TV show Better Things, and she had a small role in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So I went in knowing the basic premise and very little else. And the director had made the movie The Florida Project,
which I loved. I loved that movie. Yeah.
Really great movie. So I went in not knowing much and found myself totally taken with it, and then watched it again in preparation for this conversation and liked it even more. What drew me to it? Well, I guess we'll kind of tease this out, but I saw really strong sevenness in it. There's the kind of the indulgent, almost cartoonish picture of what sevens are like, and then there's the shadow side. And I thought it did such a great job of showing all of those dimensions.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, certainly a big seven theme in the movie. So let's see. I'll tell you what, why don't you give a description of what the movie is, because it wasn't the most popular movie. And so maybe some of our watchers, listeners are not really familiar with it. Why don't you describe the movie?
Yeah, absolutely. So Mikey Madison plays a 23-year-old stripper named Anora McKeeva. She goes by Annie. And she's a good, successful stripper, seems to enjoy her life. From the brief bit that we see of her before the inciting incident, we don't get a sense of like she's saving up for law school or is only doing it because she has to take care of a sick relative. It's like, this is her life. She's fully embraced it.
And she's then not the stripper with the heart of gold or putting herself through college to get a psychology degree or something, right?
Or taking care of a child or anything like that. Yeah. And then her manager asks if she'll come and attend to this customer because he's Russian and she at least understands and can rudimentarily speak Russian. So she goes to do that. His name is Ivan Sakharov, goes by the name Vanya, and he's in his early 20s, and he's just a pleasure-seeking guy, and they have a great time. They hit it off, and he asks if she'll come to his house, and she does, and then kind of becomes his paid-for girlfriend for a little while, and it turns out he comes from a very wealthy family. And then that spirals into a trip to Vegas with him and his friends, and then they spontaneously get married. And then when his parents, who are wealthy, successful business people in Russia, find out, there is hell to pay.
Annie, I got a kid who wants someone who speaks Russian. Let's go.
No, I'm eating my food.
You're killing me.
He's a spender. Come on, let's go.
Hello, this is the beautiful Annie.
Hi, I'm Annie.
I'm Ivan.
It was really weird. I love him.
No way.
Yes way. And I'm seeing him again tonight.
Will you marry me?
Seriously?
Seriously.
3 carrots.
What about 4?
You hit the lotto, bitch.
I know.
Bro, didn't I tell you?
Are you happy?
Very happy.
Ivan, your parents are gonna kill you.
I love my husband.
You do not know this guy.
We are consenting adults.
If you think this is gonna be allowed, you're dead wrong.
Do not touch me.
You like
Cinderella. Yes, Cinderella.
are married. They're gonna have to accept that. Doesn't matter about anything, okay?
I'll tell you, I really enjoyed the movie. I thought the parts of it were a bit too much, right? I mean, there was a lot of yelling and, and I thought at times, okay, we could have edited some of this out perhaps. And it's not a family movie too. We'll see that, right? So don't watch it with the kids. For sure. But I thought that, it was very similar to the Florida Project in this way, that it really showed the humanity of people who seem to be doing everything they can to avoid their humanity, right? And or trying to flee from suffering, trying to flee from a sense of aimlessness, but taking on this persona of toughness or pleasure seeking in order to make the feeling of emptiness or pain go away.
Yeah, agreed.
Which I think is fundamentally a Seven-ish theme, as you said.
And a lot of movies that you might describe as Seven-ish movies are comedies.
Hmm.
This has funny moments, but nobody would ever describe this as a comedy.
Right.
The Seven-ish in it is, I guess it depends on who's watching it, might be seen as, at least for the first portion, appealing.
Mm-hmm.
Look at how much fun they're having. Look at how
pure hedonism. Yeah.
Exactly. And I can imagine some people watching that and thinking like, oh, if only I had that life. Mm-hmm. But if you're thinking that, you're not going to think it for long, which to me is a strong contrast with a lot of kind of man-child comedies like Adam Sandler movies, where the gist is the same as the Vanya character, who's like, I just want to do what I want. I want to play video games. I want to smoke pot. I want to have sex with a hot girl. I want to have all my material needs taken care of. Like, that's the world that I want. A lot of comedies have that as a main theme. And this one is like, okay, imagine if that actually was happening. What's the cost of that? And how does that actually play out?
Right.
How long do you get to do that for before the bill comes due?
Right. Now, do you think that Ani's character was a 7 also? I certainly think Vanya was. What do you think about Annie?
Yeah, that's my best guess. Like, not a slam dunk, but like I said, she's happy-go-lucky. She doesn't seem to have a plan. She doesn't want to be even the greatest stripper in the world. Like, we don't get that much of a slice of her life before the story starts going. But as it's going, like, she's just along for the ride and seems fine with that.
Yeah. I wrestled with her a little bit, and I think I agree with you. I don't think she was as clearly drawn or as stereotypical as Vanya was. I mean, Vanya was kind of a stereotype of the 7, ne'er-do-well. It reminded me of kind of the younger brother character in a movie like Sabrina, right? Who, just is a fleeing responsibility in all ways that he can and so forth. She didn't seem that, and she was tough. I mean, when they were trying to keep her in the house, she was not messing around. There was a kind of a, I don't know that I'd quite say it was an 8-ish feel. I think she was just a tough, hardened 7, right? A 7 who, again, they don't get into the backstory. But one of the beautiful things about this movie, and I think, again, it shared this with the Florida Project, is establishing the sense of place whenever they showed where she lived, right? In that, southern Brooklyn, Brighton Beach, Coney Island area with the elevated train right outside the door and, all of these things. And it was clear that she was, she was living a bit, had kind of a hard scrabble life, but not wearing it on her sleeve, right? And so, but through capturing the environment so well, the director shows you so much about the character, right? Despite being a 7, which we usually think of somebody who's not necessarily tough, this was a tough woman.
And we see her anger come out in abundance. So as soon as her marriage is disrupted by the fixer, There's a guy called Toros who works for the parents. So he's based in Brooklyn. So he has to come in, and his job is to annul the marriage because this is not what his parents want, anything like that. Like as soon as he intrudes on the story, basically from that until right like 30 seconds before the movie ends, she's angry. Like she's just constantly furious.
Right.
And you can see, like, one way to look at that is the connection between 7 and 1. Of like, there's this righteous indignation of, who do you think you are? How can you do this to me? That is my husband. We are married. We love each other. No, we're not getting annulled. No, we're not getting divorced. We're going to do it like this, in spite of everything that makes it pretty clear to us watching of like, yeah, of course this isn't going to last.
Right.
Of course this isn't love. Of course this isn't a match made in heaven.
Right. Right. Yeah, and I think too, one of the things I liked about it, and particularly in Enneagram terms, is because these characters were so real and so human that it portrayed sevens much more accurately than we usually see them in movies, much more well-rounded, much more robustly, or that we read about in the literature, right? And so she is somebody who was clearly, as we've said, running from whatever her demons were, in one sense, just at least putting on this facade of just enjoying life, right? And I agree with you. I mean, she was 23 in the movie, right? And so, so she's just living life and having fun and not thinking too much about it. But at the same time, you can see that she's kind of avoiding something. And you're right. There was this anger underneath, just, clearly underneath, not expressed in the first part of the movie until, they try to break up the marriage, and then that anger comes out and she's angry through the rest of the movie. So, which again is something we can see in sevens under the right circumstances for sure.
And all of that builds up to the final moment. So if anybody wants to skip past this because they haven't seen the movie yet and they don't want it spoiled, here's the final moment.
Yeah.
He's in the final 30 seconds. She cries.
Yes.
Anger is a lot easier to access for most of us than sadness. And I would say that's especially true for a 7. Like, anger doesn't require the same kind of vulnerability or being with our pain. So you can see how the experience for her, because, for a little while it looked like maybe this is real. Like, we could love each other. We could live in this huge, beautiful house. We could have a life together, which is full of luxury. And then it gets taken away from her. And so, yeah, very few people wouldn't be angry about that. Like, I get that. But it's in the final moment. And the thing that spurs it is that someone is nice to her.
Yeah.
So there's a guy called Igor who's kind of the muscle who's brought along.
Yeah, let's talk about him, because I found him to be a very compelling character. So continue talking about Igor.
Yeah, so it's an actor I'd never seen or heard of before. I looked him up. His name is Yura Borisov. And he seemed pretty nine-ish to me. So he's this guy that's brought in as the muscle, not what you would necessarily think of as a 9. But then again, there's Andre the Giant and the Princess Bride. Like, I can think of other 9s who are that.
Yeah.
And even though his job is to restrain her and to tie her up and that kind of thing, there's no malice in the way he does it.
Right.
There's no implication that the parents are involved in the mafia at all, but it would be very easy to assume that they have criminal dealings and to assume that a strongman that's brought in is going to be like the stereotypical Russian mafioso who's like, oh, he'll happily kill you and not feel anything about it, or beat you black and blue.
Yes.
That's
and in fact, the henchmen, Toros and the other 2 guys, Igor, were actually Armenian. And one of the things that was interesting to me is that in most TV shows over the past 20 years, the Armenians have been portrayed as like the worst of the worst when it comes to the gangsters and mafia, right? So the TV series The Shield, for example, they're up against the Armenian mob. And even in Taken, the bad guys are the Armenian mafia. And, and they're brought up to be, these people that'll kill you without thinking about it. And you're right. He was the muscle, but he was very gentle and very considerate and very thoughtful throughout the whole thing, and did whatever he could. He didn't even know why he was brought there. And he was brought there in case Vanya's friends were there and they needed some muscle. And so here he has to restrain this, petite young woman without hurting her and all of these things. And it creates some really funny predicaments. So yeah, and I would say too that 9 feels about right to me with him. Because there was just such a plainness to him and such a, he's sitting there with all these crazy things happening, but he's just completely composed, right? Completely calm, completely composed, and just waiting to see what will happen. But when it does come time for him to step into action at a couple of points, he does without hesitation.
And then when Annie starts insulting him, like at a certain point, she starts just making blood sport out of insulting him for no particular reason. He just takes it.
Mm-hmm.
He never retaliates.
Right.
He's just able to receive it, and it's not like that leads up to a scene where he explodes later, like the Robert De Niro character in Jackie Brown, who I think is also a 9.
Right.
And as much shit as he takes, that does eventually lead up to an explosion where he murders somebody.
Yes.
Not the case with Igor. What that leads up to in his case is an act of kindness, of selfless kindness, where somehow he has retrieved the 3-carat wedding ring that was confiscated from Annie and gives it back to her and just says, "Don't tell Taurus."
Right.
And it's not like, "I want something from you now that I've done this." It's just like, "This seems like a nice thing to do, and now carry your bags up to your front steps, and I hope you have a good life."
Yeah. A great, I would agree, a 9-ish character. We had some good 7-ish characters. Any other characters you would comment on? How about Vanya's mother?
Vanya's mother seemed like a great 8 to me.
Yeah.
She was the boss. Both parents come over. The dad's not powerless or anything like that, but the mom does almost all of the talking.
Yeah.
And she's got that kind of 8 strength and forcefulness that she can threaten you and your family and everyone you know without raising her voice.
Right.
And you just get the sense of like, she's not exaggerating.
Yes.
Much less fabricating. Like, this woman is powerful and not afraid to use it if she needs to.
Yeah. I would say she was probably a transmitting 8. And I'd say also that both Vanya and Annie are transmitting 7s. A lot of transmitting in this movie for sure. So I agree with you about the mother, an 8, a transmitting 8. And I would. The father, Vanya's father, was not a very well-developed character, but based on what we saw, I would have suggested, I think he was an 8 also, but probably a navigating 8, right? So there was this strength there, but it was not as aggressive and not as abrasive. And the thing that really portrayed that is when Annie started insulting Vanya, and the father just starts laughing.
No, insulting the mother.
Oh, it was the mother. That's right. Okay, that's right. Yeah. And he's just admiring her. I mean, he's just laughing out of just sheer delight and admiration of this woman showing her toughness. This petite little 23-year-old woman. Just, hey, I'm not going to take any crap from anybody, and he just loves it, which was a very 8-ish reaction.
Combined with that, his wife was on the receiving end of it. So I can imagine he's thinking of like, "Oh God, you have no idea who you're trying to go up against." And nobody talks to her like this. Like, it's pretty rare for me to be in a situation where the buttons are going to be pressed like this and I get to watch.
Right.
And I'm not on the receiving end of any of the rage that's going to come out of. Like, this is the greatest show on earth. Bring it on.
Yeah.
And at the same time,
go ahead.
He's also somewhat afraid of her. So there's a scene when Taurus has to divulge to them when they've just arrived that, like, we couldn't annul the marriage because they got married in Vegas. We have to fly to Nevada. So he's terrified to tell him this. Yeah. And then he does. And then they come out in the airplane hangar, and the husband says to the wife, "Taurus has something to tell you." Like, I don't want to deliver the bad news, even though it's not my fault in the slightest. It's like, let's let you do that.
All right, great.
And Taurus, I thought, was a really good 6. The kind of the archetype that I saw for him was the good soldier. So he's just kind of the fixer. He lives in New York. He's on the ground. His job is to take care of whatever problems come up. So that's a pretty good role for a 6, the troubleshooter. Anticipate problems, head them off in the past, or if they have them, then come in and stop them. And of course, the shit hits the fan because Vanya got married and he shouldn't have, and it's a real marriage. And oh God. So he leaves the christening where he's the godfather in the middle of the ceremony when he finds out that that's what's happened. And from that point until the end of the movie, he's in this state of like, ah,
Yes.
ah,
Yes. Yes. You got me killed. I'm going to be killed because of you. You got me, it was this catastrophizing of, you've gotten me into, you've ruined my life. You've done all, and so forth. So,
and it's not my fault.
Right.
This is your fault. It wasn't me. I didn't do this. How could you do this to me? Now I'm going to be on the receiving end of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
There's a passage in the middle of the movie that's about a third of the total length of the movie's running time when Vanya just disappears. Yeah. Like it's when Toros and Garnick and other henchmen show up and they make it clear of like just how bad the situation is. And Vanya I thought it was a great sudden moment of like, I don't want to deal with this.
I'm out of here.
So how am I going to deal with this? By running.
Yes.
And then they have to find him. And he's not answering his phone. He's not answering texts. So how do you find someone who doesn't want to be found in New York?
Mm.
So for about 40 minutes, the four of them look for him.
Yeah.
And, from an audience point of view, it's like, this looks pretty fruitless to me. Like, I would probably give up if I were in their situation. But Toros doesn't.
Right.
He's on with I've got a mission.
Dog with a bone. Yeah, for sure.
Failure is not an option. If I fail, I will die. And he might not be entirely wrong or exaggerating by that. So for 40 minutes, we're just part of this frustrating, fruitless search.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the movie has overall almost a documentary feel, a lot like the Florida Project.
Yeah.
That's accentuated by the fact that other than Annie, I'd never seen any of the actors before. And the Russians are played by Russians and the Armenians are played by Armenians.
Yeah.
And it's it just seemed like how much of this was improvised? How much were they just filming and then created this overabundance of material, then edited together? But it just felt completely believable to me.
You know what? That's an excellent point. And I think it's what added to my feeling of some of this could have been cut out. Right. And again, not to criticize it because I thought it was really, really well done and it was a good movie and an excellent movie. And there were a couple of scenes that I felt just went on too long and it did feel improvised. Right. And they weren't quite sure how to end the scene, a couple of times. It felt like to me, kind of like some of the Larry David episodes, right. Where it's like, okay, you could have cut this 30 seconds ago and we wouldn't have lost anything. Right. But you're right. I think that's a great thing. The other thing I really, really liked about it is that a tremendous amount of it was shot on location in various parts. Right. I mean, this was not a backlot, film production company kind of movie. And some wonderful, wonderful, scenes shot in Coney Island, Brighton Beach, that lower Brooklyn, Russian Jewish part of New York that's just so wonderful. I mean, I just love that area. It's so cinematic and so interesting while still being so bleak at the same time, right? So I think that just, again, added a real depth to the experience.
And to me, the scenes that I imagine felt too long to you didn't to me because what I got out of it was it made me as frustrated as the characters.
Right.
Or if not as frustrated, it's like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Of just how fruitless this search is, just how long it's taking, how frustrating it is. And then they just keep upping the ante. Like at one point, one of the side guys vomits in the car, because he'd been concussed and he broke his nose.
Completely out of nowhere, right?
And a lot of vomit. And now they have to clean it up. And now the car smells.
Yes.
Or another scene, they come back from where they've illegally parked and it's about to be towed.
Right.
And Toros is trying to bribe the driver and he won't have any of it. So he just gets in the car and slams on the gas pedal and gets out and damages the tow truck.
Right. Right.
Just one thing after another. It was like, oh God, this is brutal. And yet it's supposed to be.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Good.
And another comparison I had was it felt in some ways like a symphony in that the different portions of the movie had their own tempo. just in terms of like how much time passes. How often is there an edit? How long is the scene? What's the mood of the scene?
Right.
So like it really does have some sharp shifts. So if you were to only watch a part of it, it'd be very easy to get the impression that the whole movie's like that. And it's not.
Yeah.
Once one portion is done, okay, that is done.
Yeah.
Now we're in this part, which has this rhythm and this mood to it. And now that is done, and so on.
Yeah, it really could have been 3 or 4 different movies thematically wise, right? Theme and tone, right? So there's the whole first part where they're in clubs and partying it up the whole time. And then there's kind of their little interlude of domestic bliss. And then there's the whole, waiting for Toros to show up scene, which was, 20 minutes long at least. And, right. And that was the whole thing. And then there was the search part, and then was the confrontation with the parents part. Right. And you're right. They all did feel different. Both in the visual look was different, for all of them. And, just the emotion they were bringing out was very different, for each one as well.
Yeah, towards the end, there's a number of just intimate dialogue scenes between Annie and Igor.
Yeah.
And they're quiet and they're lengthy. Yeah. And like, I can imagine cutting those, making them shorter in the first place, or just realizing, okay, we get it. But no, let's let that play out.
Yeah.
Let's show that this is part of the experience too. After the exhaustion, all the frustration is burning itself out. And now this character who's been very quiet the whole time, now we get to get some window into who he is.
Yeah. Yeah. This thought just popped in my head. So one of the kind of, points of the movie was that her name was Anora, but she went by Annie. Tell me from your view what that desire says about the rest of the movie or about the character.
To go by the name Annie.
Yeah, for them to make the point that they did about her having the name Anora and the title of the movie being that, but she clearly didn't like her name and wanted to be called Annie. I don't know, any reaction to that?
Yeah, well, it's also referenced quite specifically in one of the scenes late in the movie where Igor talks about his name and how it means warrior in Russian, whereas she just associates it with the Frankenstein character, thinks it's a hunchback name. And then he asks her what Anora means, and she has no idea.
Right.
And she says, in America, we don't care about the meaning of names. And then he looks it up. And her name means pomegranate or light or bright.
Yeah.
And they never follow up on that. It's not like she becomes interested in that. And it's not like any of those 3 things encapsulate who she is.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, and again, this just popped into my head right before I asked the question. So it might be, not a point. But what came to my mind is that the choice of Annie, which is a fun name, a non-substantive name, versus Anora, which is a substantive name. It's almost like I'm fleeing this serious part of myself, right? This deep part of myself, this interesting part of myself, and pursuing superficiality instead, which again, I just, I have no idea of knowing if that was planned or even if I'm reading that right, but that just seems to me to be consistent with the theme of what she was trying to do. And then at the end, as you said, when she kind of has her little breakdown, there's that being confronted with the suffering and the seriousness of life and the longing for something better.
And if there's anything, because she's got Russian ancestry, and that's why she at least understands and can rudimentarily speak Russian. If there's anything Russian literature is known for, and Russian culture in general, I'd say it's suffering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thousands of years of suffering, brutal, painful suffering, which can be transmuted into poetry and ballet and, novels of Dostoevsky and such. Russian literature is famous for penetrating insight into the human soul.
Yeah.
And not exactly being funny or fun.
Right.
Whereas, so she's got that kind of in her family background. But as you said, she's choosing to live as an American girl. She's got very much a New York accent. She seems to have very much an American mentality.
Right.
And only like this nominal connection to the fact that that's where she comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Anora does sound much more European,
Right.
much more old world.
Right. Right.
And
Good.
yeah, she doesn't seem to need that.
Yeah.
Or yeah, it's like she rejects that part of herself.
Right.
Which is another kind of 7-ish theme.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. All right. Good. Anything else about Anora before we move on to the next movie?
No. Yeah, I don't think so. I think that covers it.
Okay. All right. Good. Yeah. Great pick. I really enjoyed it, and it was a movie that kind of grew on me. And despite my, complaints about some of the, lengthier scenes and all the yelling and all that sort of thing, I think it paid off, and I think it tied together nicely at the end. Right. The ending felt very, very genuine to me, and the natural outcome. And I would really recommend, if you like this movie, to also watch the Florida Project, which I just thought was a delight. I forget what year that came out, but again, another movie that really looked at the lives of people who are suffering, but trying to make it, trying to survive, trying to be happy, despite some really bleak circumstances. So, highly recommend that
And
movie.
that one has a real documentary feel as well.
Yes.
It's set in like a pretty cheap hotel on the outskirts of Orlando, not too far from the theme parks. And
Right.
the people who stay there are residents.
Right.
And like they're just getting by. Their lives are not easy.
Yeah.
And Willem Dafoe is I think the only known actor in it.
Right.
And he fits in just fine. He doesn't look like Mr. Hollywood is cruised in. Like he's very believable in that environment.
Yeah. Agreed.